Hey guys, I'm James and welcome to another episode of Rubicon Unlimited. Today we're going to do something different. There's no product to review or install. We're going to be talking about a bucket list trip that I just got back from. Spent 2 weeks on the road with my brother and a friend. We hit 10 off-road trails all the way from Toronto, Utah, then Colorado, and we had an amazing time. So today we're going to talk about things like trails, cost, mileage, all the things that go on during an expedition like this. Okay, so the idea for this trip was to go from Toronto all the way down to Utah, then hit Colorado and circle back home. All along the way, we would be hitting some off-road trails, and a lot of them are actually Jeep Badge of Honor trails, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We would do some hiking. Whole time we were going to be camping, no hotel rooms for us. So what kind of mileage did we do on this trip? Well, from Toronto, do that whole circle, we detoured a little bit. We wanted to hit some landmarks and some sites. We actually hit 8,500 kilometers. So that was for 15 days of driving. And some days we did some solid driving. I'm talking like 10 hours from Toronto all the way to Utah. It's roughly 30 hours. So we did some long days on the road. And because of that, we spent quite a bit of money on gas. And we did plan for that because, like I said, it's 2 weeks of driving. Okay, so if you guys are going to plan to do a trip like this, budget in around $2,600. That's Canadian, and that's for food, that's for gas, that's for those miscellaneous things. You're going to have to camp, you're going to have to pay for some parks, you're going to want firewood, probably some alcohol. So I would roughly say $2,600 all in. So let's break down these costs a little bit further to give you some more insight here. So out of that $2,600, we roughly spent $1,400 on gas. Then it was around $900 for food, and that was for my brother and myself, so that's 2 people for food. And then miscellaneous things, roughly $300, depending on how many souvenirs and t-shirts you want to buy. So that's what you can expect. Hopefully that helps you guys. Now, I went with my brother, so we split that, and I would say it's totally worth it to do 2 weeks and spend that kind of money. It was just an amazing trip, and I would definitely do it again, and I definitely plan on doing that. Okay, now with costs out of the way, let's talk about the actual journey here. We ended up taking majority of the time the I-80 to get down to Utah, and that took us through Michigan. Hold on, I've got this written down here. Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, and then finally we landed in Utah. And every day we would spend time camping. So we pulled up to national parks. We got there super late, set up our tents, crack it on, we were out. We packed up and hit the road again. So my buddy Paul, lucky for him, had a rooftop tent, and it was a bit of a savior because he was set up and torn down in like 5 minutes. Whereas my brother and I, we were doing the traditional camping where we had to set up a tent, break it down in the morning, and some nights were kind of cold. It was a little bit grueling. So if I did this trip again, I would definitely get a rooftop tent. I know they're pricey, but they're definitely worth the admission cost. Okay, now before we hit the off-roading, we had some bucket list national parks to hit. And when you're in Utah, it's probably worth checking out Zion National Park. We did a pretty crazy hiking trail called Angel's Landing. It's not for the faint of heart. If you like hiking and you've done it a few times and you're in good health, check out Angel's Landing because it is remarkable. It's a very risky trail because you are literally on a trail this wide, probably 3,000 feet up, and sheer cliffs on both sides. All you have is a chain to hold on to, and it's pretty nuts. Once you get to the top, the view is beautiful, but man, it was a crazy hike. So from Zion, we then detoured and we hit Arizona. And this is because my buddy Paul found a really cool off-the-grid campsite called Tuip. It's right at the north rim of the Grand Canyon, super secluded. You need 4-wheel drive to get there, and it's about an hour drive through the desert before you get to this primitive site. But man, there was no one around, some really cool photos, and it was a crazy experience. Probably my favorite campsite of the whole trip. So the next day, we got some breakfast. We went to the Moab Diner, and actually we ate there a few times. Highly recommend that place. And then we checked into our first Jeep Badge of Honor trail. So let's quickly talk about this app that I mentioned, Badge of Honor. It's for Android, iOS, and Jeep put this thing together, and really Jeep's marketing team deserves a high five for this because it's so cool. Pretty much recognizes roughly 47 trails across the US, and you check into them, be roughly 10 miles away from each trail. Once you check in your trail, you actually can submit to receive hard automotive badge. It sends it to you for free, and it's got the trail name, all the details. You can proudly stick that onto your Jeep, show that, hey, I used my rig for this trail and get it through. One thing to note, mainly speaking about a Canadian experience here, this app does not send the badge to Canadian addresses. So if you're like myself, you're gonna need a friend that lives in the US, family members, where you can input their address, have it sent there, and then they can relay the badge to you. Okay, so what was this first trail that we hit? Of the world. It's been on our bucket list for a while, and we had to do it. We had to get to the end of the trail. We had to get the picture, and yeah, we got the picture. Here it is. I had to get it printed because, bucket lists, they matter. Okay, so let's talk about my rig for a second, because some of you guys might be wondering, hey, can I do this trail with a stock Jeep? Well, let's just say I have 35s. They're actually 315s, so on paper they're 35s, but in real life they're a little bit shorter. I have a leveling kit, and that's about it. So I have a mild build, nothing crazy, and I did this trail. And man, it was such a great trail, so scenic. I'm not going to go over the details of, what it looks like. I have a bit of footage, but if you go check out Trail Recon's channel, he goes over most of these trails that I'm going to talk about. So you might want to check him out as well. Doing Top of the World, we did get stuck in one little tricky situation where we thought we were taking the bypass and ended up in the hard line. And I pretty much put my Jeep to the limit that I've ever, put it through. And it did so well. I was expecting some kind of damage or, something to go wrong, but we pushed through, we made it, we got to the top, we got our photos, and it was incredible.
Going back to good. Got it. Bring it, straighten it up. Ready to go. Nice. Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. That was big ticketed.
All right, next trail on the list was Hell's Revenge. And again, that's another iconic trail, especially when you're in Moab. You gotta do it. You're dealing with that slick rock. It is so cool. This was a super fun trail. It was our first real experience on that slick rock, and it was so fun. Make sure to air down. You're gonna need to do that. This trail is full of steep inclines, steep descents. There's those hot tubs all over the place. People going buying dirt bikes side by side. It was super fun. We had a great day out there. And actually we ran into Nemesis Industries, and they were testing out some products of theirs. They had a Gladiator right in one of those hot tubs. It was pretty cool to witness. All right, so that same day we went and did another trail. It's not really recognized by Jeep, but it's pretty cool. You should check it out. It's called Long Canyon Trail. And you go through some fallen rocks. There's like some tunnels and some really cool sights. Okay, with 2 of those trails on the list checked off. Next day we woke up super early and we went and checked out a national park. Near Moab there's Arches National Park, so we went and checked out the Double Arch. Pretty cool photo op. Go check that guy out. Then we went to Fins and Things, and it's kind of like Top of the World meets Hell's Revenge. Got that same rock formation, super fun. Another one off the list. That's on Jeep Badge of Honor, so we got 3. And when you're in Moab, you might want to check out the Moab Brewery. Got some really good burgers there, so I could recommend that. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the Moab experience. And man, we're going to be back because there are so many trails in Moab. It is like the Jeep Mecca. It's literally people driving down the streets there, lifted Jeeps, side-by-sides, dirt bikes, for off-roading. Everyone's got to go check this place out. It's amazing. So then we went down to the Rocky Mountains. We traveled all the way to Colorado, and we set up in Telluride. So our first trail that we wanted to do Imogene Pass. It's one of those really cool ones where you go up and over the mountains. We actually hit 13,000 feet. That's the peak. And man, it is pretty cool. There are mine relics all along the way. I mean, it's just awesome being in the mountains. The scenery is remarkable. Check it out. You guys got to do that loop. So after Imogene Pass, we ended up in Ouray, Colorado, and it's pretty cool. Small little town. They've got a really great brewery. Check that one out. Next day, it was Ophir Pass for us. And again, it's another one of those crazy mountain trails. Got loose rock everywhere, shale. Take your time. It's awesome. Enjoy the sights. I recommend that, all these trails in Colorado, you got to make sure the weather is nice. You don't want to be out in that environment in any kind of crazy weather, whether it's snow or rain. Take it easy, because some of these mountainous trails are no joke. You could definitely roll over, you can go down the hill, and people do die on these things. So not to be dramatic, but All right, so that night we stayed in Silverton. It's another one of those really cool old school towns. Lunch at the Grand Imperial Hotel. It's a really cool place. It's been around since the 1800s. Apparently the front window's never been replaced. It's just super cool. It's a bit of a time warp. You should definitely check that one out. Today we went and hit Clear Lake. So that is another one of those mountain trails. You get to the top, there's this secluded lake just on the top of the mountain. It's really cool, nice sight. We had scheduled to go to Engineer Pass, and I don't know why, but last minute we decided, hey, Black Bear Pass is one of those dangerous trails that most people avoid, but I don't know, we had a feeling just to go and do that one instead. So that was going to be our last Badge of Honor trail. Black Bear Pass, pretty dang cool. Now listen, it's a dangerous trail. The switchbacks are very tight, and you just got to take your time, do 3-point turns, do 4-point turns, maybe even a 5-point turn, because you get pretty close to the edge. The shale is super loose, so you don't want to push it. Be safe. But man, it was super fun, and again, super scenic. We end up back in Telluride, a cool trail. Yeah, Colorado, definitely worthwhile. It's pretty cool to say that my Jeep's been up and over the Rocky Mountains, because you guys have been witnessing, I've been building up my Jeep, but Canada doesn't really have that kind of landscape to really push the Jeep to the limit in regards to, going up and over mountains. Unless you live in BC or somewhere like that, but where I'm from, Toronto, pretty much just a concrete jungle. It's worthwhile doing this trip down to the US. It's not that bad. I mean, people might think, ooh, Utah, it's so far away, but if you just hit the road, you're gonna have a great time. Honestly, I recommend this to everybody, and I'm pretty proud of my Jeep. It was in a few sticky situations and we got through them, so I'm pretty happy about that. Pretty happy to get these badges of honor and stick them on my Jeep. Questions that you guys might have, please leave them in the comments, because I'll do my best to help you guys out. I really encourage you all to do a trip like this. It is so cool. So if this video helped you out, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe, because next up, we're gonna do some more installs. I think we're gonna go back to that format. I don't know if I'm going to be doing another trip like this in the near future, maybe in another year or so. So until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.